every day we tell ourselves we're gonna get everything picked up, but just got 20 tons of dirt dropped off to try to patch up holes and keep everything from getting too wet for the cows. So it's always a work in progress. Maisie, Jenna. But yeah, I'll introduce Jenna while she's checking things out. But so Jenna was born on a dairy farm, and her story was she was born with a twin brother. And so for whatever reason, when there's a female calf with the twin brother, they end up having a 95% chance of being infertile. And so for Jenna, being infertile means she can't make milk. If she can't, thank you, Elvis. If she can't get pregnant, she can't make milk. If she can't make milk, then she's not useful to them. So the farmer was actually going to shoot her and her brother. And because the daughter convinced her dad not to kill them and asked if she could find homes, we ended up picking up Jenna at a mall down in Durham, North Carolina, put her in the back of a Subaru Forester, and drove her home. And she was 3 days old at the time. So since she's been 3 days old, we've been hanging out. So I'm not sure if she thinks she's human or I'm a cow, but I used to bring her bottles and she would headbutt me in the stomach to try to get more milk to let down. You coming over? You gonna get Charlotte up? Yes, the fun that the pigs and the cows have. Are you gonna come say hi, kiddo? You haven't got your hugs yet this morning. Do you want some love? Do you want a hug? Do you need your hugs, kiddo? And you gonna check them out? Yeah, I know. Yeah, so we tend to end up hugging a lot in the morning. It's sort of her way of waking up. She likes to just lay her head on me. And so sometimes she'll want to do this for like 20 minutes, and she tends to be better behaved if she gets her love in the morning. So it's always a good idea to make sure I'm out here. Otherwise, she comes to the back window and she'll try to moo for me. Are you watching what they're doing? Are you being shy? Are you being shy? That's okay. They're just here to take your picture a little bit. And so then the other thing she likes to do, and first thing I was told about cows is never grab them by their horns because it's like a challenge. But she likes to put her head up against you and just kind of like push her head into you. Like, I don't know if she likes the pressure, but it's like her way of hugging too. So she'll just kind of stand here, and it's like her way of saying good morning. And so she's definitely, of the three cows, the one that needs the most attention and demands it. And so she'll like let us know she needs her love. Right, kiddo? But she's got horns, and so they occasionally get stuck in stuff. Right, kiddo? Are you gonna behave? Say no, never? All right. Yeah. Yeah, Mallory's one of her favorite toys. So
like a bowling pin that she likes to.
Yeah, she'll like to kind of. All right, so Annie over here, she's our latest rescue. And so Annie's story is she was born on, like, I guess a beef farm because she was actually listed as her breed as beef, which I'm not sure what that means, but she is a dwarf cow. She'll never get much bigger than this. So she's a year old, and the other thing about her, and the reason she ended up here, and a lot of the animals end up here, is because they have something that's seen as defective. So she's blind. She doesn't see much more than we think shadows, but she seems to stop. But she's super sweet, and so the people that had her originally passed her off to a family that did, I think, like 4-H stuff. They kept her alive for the year, and then realized that the electric fences weren't going to be a good idea for her, and they didn't have the heart, they said, to take her to market. So they asked if there was anyone that would give her a home. And so, you know, we heard about her and said that we would love to give her a forever home, because, you know, I think our big goal here at Life with Pigs is to give that one-on-one attention and to get to know animals for who they are, and then share that story, because we think that people learning about the animal, feeling like they know them, like they're part of their family, helps people make that connection. So they realize that, the difference between, Annie here and, the dog that lives in their home really isn't, anything other than a size difference. And then with Annie, the size isn't all that much. You sleepy today, Annie? Yeah, this heat, cows do not like heat. It's not their favorite thing. So when it gets warm, cows slow down, like they want to just chill. And then the first night it gets cold, you would swear that they had like sugar just flowing through their blood, because they'll be amped up. I mean, it's just amazing to us. I think it's, revealing of how adaptive animals are, because when we heard that she was blind, you're kind of thinking, what can we do to make things easier on her? We had got like posts to put around anything hard to make sure she didn't bump into them. But, she seems to find her way around to sort of map things out. And, she just seems very aware, like all her other senses have kicked in. And, it's rare that she bumps into anything. And, she'll just wander around the yard as if she's mapped it out in her head. And sometimes she'll like circle, like she knows, like she's around something and she's just trying to get there. But, I don't know, she's just, it's very, I guess, just amazing to watch how well a blind animal who's only been here a short time, she's only been here about a month, has already sort of figured out her whole world around her and fit in. And so, and that everyone's accepted her, even like the two cows have sort of realized, see, like she stopped right there. So I think she has some shadow vision, but, everyone sort of accepted her and, figured out her limitations in terms of what she can handle. And, even Jenna, who, she'll be rough with the pigs, because the pigs always picked her when she was little, but with Annie here, she seems to get that she's smaller, that she can't handle as much playing. And so it's always nice seeing how well everyone integrates together, even though you've got such a multitude of species kind of coming together with different forms of communication, playing styles, and yet everybody's able to get along. And this over here is Pumpkin. So Pumpkin we sometimes call Eeyore, because she's grumpy sounding, but really super sweet. And you can see she gets the mohawk. She wants to be loved on. And so Pumpkin came to me as she was a breeder pig prior to coming here. So she had just baby after baby, and they were taken from her. And in the wild, pigs are likely to stay together as a family, especially the females. And so when we adopted her, obviously the first thing we wanted to do was get her spayed, which protects, her and her body, but also was to bring her baby, and that's Charlotte over there in the background. That's her baby over there. And so Charlotte was 8 weeks old, one of her last babies. And so they sleep together every night. If Charlotte's getting shots at the vet, Pumpkin has come up to me and put her mouth around my leg to let me know that my baby better be okay. So they're very close. They definitely have remained a family. And, other than that Charlotte's a little bit of a brat and takes her mom's food occasionally, I think that Pumpkin's really glad that her baby stayed. And the nice thing about pigs is you can usually get them to fall over for belly rubs. Yeah. And so she'll sound grumpy, but then she just adores being loved on. And we'll just kind of lay here to be scratched. And you like that, kiddo? And we call her Mama Wump sometimes, because she'll just make like a wump noise the entire time you're loving on her. Yeah. Want to go see your baby? Nope. Hey, Maisie. You coming over to see what's going on? So Maisie here, Maisie is our well-behaved cow, although Annie might be replacing her in that category as most well-behaved. But Compared to Jenna, who is our sort of class clown, you know, always the center of attention. Maisie's much more relaxed. She's a little more reserved with people because she was born on a dairy farm as well, but for the first 3 months of her life, she really had no interaction with people other than probably, you know, negative or just being fed. And so when I met her to try to get her into the trailer, she just kicked me in the leg harder than I've probably ever been kicked in the leg before. Thought, what are we doing? This cow is gonna like beat us up. And by the end of the night, we were cuddled up on the ground, you know, snuggled with her. And so she's become like just super sweet, but you know, she is quickly became best friends with Jenna. Jenna had a best friend named Winnie prior to Maisie coming, and Winnie had bad legs, so had passed away sort of unexpectedly because cows, when they can't move their belly, can't digest their food correctly. So we brought home Maisie in the trailer. You gonna knock that over? Good job, kiddo. And we think Jenna thought that it was Winnie coming home. And so she was just circling the trailer, all excited, just like very amped up, mooing. And then all of a sudden comes out this, you know, little cow that looked at the time like a baby deer. And she just looked at her like, no, you're not Winnie. And kept staring into the trailer, trying to see if Winnie was going to come out. But within, you know, a very short period of time, they were best friends. And so now every day you can come out in the yard and usually find the two of them giving each other, you know, extensive baths. And yeah, you never have to worry about Maisie. Like, Maisie is so, she does love cameras though. She loves to check out what's going on with them. But yeah, unlike Jenna, no horns and much less desire to see how much she can play. You checking him out? So Charlotte is Pumpkin's baby. Now Charlotte and I sort of started where my activism changed. Prior to Charlotte, the focus of my activism for animals had been doing art and kind of like going out to places, taking photos at slaughterhouses, stuff like that. And when Charlotte came, I took her to, you have a cow behind you, but it's just Maisie. I would take Charlotte out, we would go do activism together at college campuses, and I realized after the first time, college kids would walk up, they'd see this little piglet, and their reaction would be, I don't want to eat them anymore. And I thought, well, that is way better than people wanting to kill me all the time. Charlotte gets to eat grass, you know, on a college campus. Kids get to meet her. You know, she gets socialized a little, she gets to just kind of explore the world, and people decide that they want to go vegan. It was at that point, you know, we started just kind of hanging out together in public, and it was just literally going to a place where there was grass, letting her eat grass, and I would talk to people while she did it. And so that sort of shifted it, how I did my activism. And so Pumpkin and Charlotte were the first two pigs that came to live with me. I lived in a condo at the time. Shortly after, the pig behind you over here, which is Millie, came. And so Millie is our smallest of our pigs. Now, all three of these pigs are smaller than I think even what people can reasonably expect when they adopt a mini pig. And we always encourage people to adopt because by about 2 years of age, you kind of have an idea of how big they're gonna get. But I always tell people, if you get a piglet, somewhere between 0 and 600 pounds is what you can expect. You know, you just don't know. But Millie, she has the really long legs. We thought she was gonna be a farm pig, and we were living in a condo on the second floor. I was carrying all three pigs downstairs each day because none of them like to do stairs. And then a Rhode Island red chicken moved in. The Rhode Island red chicken was wearing a diaper. Her name was Beatrice, and so we had 3 pigs and a Rhode Island red chicken all living in a condo. It was clear at that point that we needed to get out of the condo and get a place with a door that opened into a yard, and so that's when we ended up moving here. But yeah, and Millie, she has a bit of a head tilt, and we sometimes joke that, you know, she's sort of survives on her looks because she's adorable, but sometimes she just seems like she's not fully there. And so we think pigs would be the 3rd smartest animal if it wasn't for the fact that Millie kind of brings down the average a little bit because of how sort of clueless sometimes she appears, but we adore her. And we think maybe actually she does have like pig autism too, because we'll pet her and she'll rub into it as she sounds like she hates it. But it's just, pigs and humans are so closely related that the idea that we share, you know, those sorts of similarities is quite likely. And there's actually been some studies on pigs potentially having autism. And so it's quite possible that she has sort of a mild form of that. So one of our big things is the hope that everyone will sort of get along. We want all the animals to sort of just live as one big family. And so fortunately, for the most part, it works. So Quincy here, the turkey that is proudly showing off how beautiful he is sort of the yard guard. Fortunately, he is sweet as can be. We're not sure, we think he's like 50-50 on if he enjoys being loved on, because he doesn't really try to get away. And like, so you can kind of pet him and like he's super sweet. But then you'll set him down after petting him a little and he puffs back up to show how tough he is and, you know, to let us know that his dignity has not been tampered with by our loving on him. And then behind him there is the female turkey there, and so he will kind of guard her while she's in the yard. For some reason, she hasn't been laying as many eggs this year, whereas Tio jumps over the fence and tries to hide her eggs. So we're constantly going to find Tia and bringing her back at night to make sure that she's safe. She's sort of used to it at this point, but she used to get really feisty about the fact that we were trying to bring her back into the yard because don't want like raccoons or anything to find her. So yeah, and here we've got the sheep here. They have a fight or flight mode that we call flight. You get close to them and they take off. Standing up there is Piper. Piper is the daughter and Bonnie is her mom. So they came to us from a place that had them in the yard essentially as ornaments, and then they were moving and basically we're gonna send them to market if no one would take them. Send them to market, I think, is like the nice way of saying they're gonna end up being, you know, cheap meat or, you know, just slaughtered quickly because we're done using them. And so I think it's a way a lot of people kind of make themselves feel better about the realities of what's gonna happen is by saying we're gonna send them to market and it doesn't have to, anything can happen, you know, they might not die. So in their heads, they don't have to take that next step. It's a lot like with Jenna. We would take Jenna for a walk. You would meet dairy farmers. They'd say, what's so bad about dairy? And we talk about how like they'd send the young male calves to slaughter. And they would always say, we don't do that. We sell them to other people. And we'd be like, but what are those people gonna do? And eventually you'd get them to accept, yes, those people are going to slaughter those cows, you know, as veal or, you know, for whatever. But it's the idea that if you don't do it yourself, then that's not part of the process. And so, you know, with Jenna, she's essentially a little of both worlds, where like she would have been a dairy cow had she not been infertile. And so she would have lived 4 years before they slaughtered her. But because she was infertile, they were gonna kill her like a veal cow, you know, like the males. And so she would have only lived, you know, potentially a few days because on this farm they just shot them. And so, you know, she was lucky to escape that. But I think, you know, even on farms, there's this sense of denial. Like, as long as I'm not part of the end process, then that end process doesn't exist. You shedding, kiddo? You look very sleepy. You chewing the cud? So Bonnie is much more likely to let me pet her. Piper, like, lets us, but it's usually if we have treats, she's like a little more. But she's like, they both come such a long way in a short time because, I mean, they've only been here since January, and when they first came, they wanted nothing to do with being near us. Whereas now Bonnie will actually come up to us once in a while and want us to love on her. She gets a little shyer of new people, but, and Piper, like, used to, if we were this close to her, she would take off, and now she kind of just hangs out. But like Bonnie here seems to really enjoy being loved on, and they love their fan. Like, we put the fan down here specifically for them, so it keeps them cool, because even though we just shaved them not too long ago, like, they get this really thick wool, and so we may actually have to shave them again at some point here, just to try to keep them cool throughout the summer here. Are you falling asleep, kiddo? You look very happy about this. Yes, cows are always helpful with everything. Like we were like digging a hole the other day, and Jenna, of course, had to like shove her horns into the mix of it and make everything way more complicated. But yeah, a lot of our time is spent in here, hugging on the cows, loving on the sheep. You just laying down in there, Bonnie, keeping cool. But yeah, and so like at night, we love to come out and sit in the cow barn and just like hug on the cows. We'll put down like a chair and they'll lay their heads in our laps. We'll end up just, out here for, sometimes hours just hugging on them. And that's probably one of our favorite things, Strangely, it ranks higher than picking up poop, but. So in here is the chicken kingdom. So we have the warning to egg thieves, what will happen. Did not survive his ordeal with trying to take eggs. So first here we have Talia. And so Talia is like a good example. Elvis loves to shout me down. Of what happens and sort of how badly we treat chickens. Because Talia, the reason that she's in as good a shape as she is for a Cornish cross, which is what they, sadly call the meat birds, is the factory farm she was from went out of business. So they stopped feeding all the chickens. So she was starving. Thank you, Elvis. So she was starving, and because she was starving, her body slowed down growing, is my guess. And so because it slowed down, she didn't end up as one of the chickens that had a heart attack because her body grew too quickly, or because, or had broken limbs. We had recently our oldest Cornish cross, she was 3 years old, passed away, but her whole life she looked like she'd been hit by a bus. She just had like the legs that kind of went out to the side. She kind of was hobbled, and that was right from 4 weeks old when we got her, just because of they selectively bred them to be the hungriest and to grow the quickest. And so in no way factors in what happens if they live past the 6 weeks that they might live on a factory farm. And so because of that, their health is shot. So the fact that starving Talia is why her health is a little bit better. Essentially we had to torture her, humans, into being slightly healthier so that now she can still carry her body around. Says a lot about how we treat chickens. Elton over here, so he's a good example of the sort of, people often say, well, what if I have backyard chickens? He's sort of the casualty of that because people can't have roosters in a lot of places. And so when they get a rooster, they just either dump them or, kill them. And so someone dumped him across the street. Fortunately for Elton, he is not laying eggs and he's a smaller, lighter chicken. So health-wise, he's in pretty good condition. But had he been the Rhode Island red breed, what they do is usually grind up the male or the male chicks alive, because when they're shipping them to Tractor Supply or other places where they're going to sell the chicks, they're not going to need those males. People aren't wanting to buy them and usually can't have them where they live. And so when people talk about backyard chickens, I think the best question to ask is, well, where are those roosters? And the fact is, they're dead. They did not make it past the first step of the process. They're very entertained by how beautiful they are, and that's why the mirror says, mirror, mirror on the wall, who's the fairest chicken of them all, because they just will kind of walk back and forth in front of there during the day. And usually the two roosters, Elvis and Elton, will be sitting there together looking in the mirror together. A little vanity, but the chickens also, whenever a chicken has a health issue, we have a friend that comes over who like treats their feet and stuff if anything's going wrong, because a lot of them, because of their weight, end up with pressure sores on their feet. And so she'll soak their feet and then she'll put on like a cartoon on her like iPad or like the Kindle, and they'll watch cartoons while they get this done, and they seem to be vastly entertained by watching, and all of them have their own favorites. Some chickens actually do like live action movies better, and sometimes I think Rachel just watches what she wants to watch, and they seem to enjoy that too. But yeah, so they seem very entertained by sort of whether it be their mirror image or watching a movie. Like it seems to keep them occupied, and they enjoy it. We've tried to turn this into sort of a mix of castle and jungle so they can climb around. So this here is another example of, the backyard chicken world. Just to keep you out of there. And so this is Wish, and so you can see Wish's leg does not go the right direction, and I'll come over here. Yeah, so Wish's leg goes backwards, and her leg was broke when she arrived at Tractor Supply. Fortunately for Wish, usually they'll euthanize the ones that they can't sell. We're right across the railroad track, and so they know we're here, and so they asked if we would take her. And so our friend Rachel raised her, and Indy, which is the black one over here, they came together. They put her with Wish to be friends. And so fortunately, they're very animal friendly for our Tractor Supply, a place that sells, the nose rings or the little bands to castrate, baby animals that the not so nice stuff. Fortunately, a lot of people there are vegetarian, vegan, or, just understand it. And so they put her in the back, and we picked her up. But like with the chicken, like surgery for this is way more likely to kill her than to help her. And so fortunately, she just kind of uses as propeller, and it helps her to get around a little bit. But the reason it probably happened is because the nutrition they give them is so minimal. They want to get them to the store as cheaply as possible. So if a few end up sickly or throwaways, that's better than spending more to keep them healthy. And it's the same with, say, the egg industry, where every 2 years they kill all the chickens, and the reason is because 33% will end up with ovarian cancer. And so if you're trying to treat cancer in chickens, the cost of producing eggs goes way up, so it's easier just to kill them and start over. And so, with Wish here, just sort of keeping the cost down was the primary goal. But yeah, and she does surprisingly well at getting around. We were worried when she was little because we had another chick like this that was, just had some genetic issues or malformed parts from basically how they raise them, or they breed them. And so she had way more issues, whereas Wish here just seems to have the one limb that doesn't function right. But other than that, she does really well at getting around, and she's nice and fluffy. Hey kid, I'm gonna put you back in your safe space over here. Yeah, the hardest part about chickens is the pecking order, and so making sure that everybody's safe and that you don't end up with, a 10-pound rooster trying to get on the back of a, half-pound chick. Or chicken doesn't work so well for them. So Elvis, he was just a show rooster. Again, people I think have this misconception that there's better treatment depending on what their purpose is, but he was a show rooster. He was left to die in Florence. They found him on top of someone's deck with a pig that had been left to die in Florence. So floodwaters are coming by, and they had to ride up on a boat and rescue him. And then, of course, afterwards, from what I hear, the person who left him to die wanted him back, which, is sort of a bizarre concept. But I guess in their mind, he survived, and he's their property. But fortunately, Elvis has escaped here. So, and then Indy, which is his girlfriend here. So Indy is what would usually be considered like an egg-laying bird. And so unfortunately that means her body will produce like 300 or more eggs a year. And in the wild, they would have laid about 12 to 20 eggs. And so that, is more like a human, like where there's like 12, essentially eggs a year. But because we've got it to 300, like eventually something goes wrong, something that will either cause her to be in pain for the rest of her life or something that will kill her. And so that's where the essentially 33% or more of them end up with ovarian cancer, just from constantly, having an egg go through their reproductive system. Something gets stuck, something breaks, it's just something goes wrong. And so they don't do well. With Indy here, we have her implanted. It's actually a ferret hormone that keeps them from laying eggs, and by preventing the egg laying, it actually keeps their body healthy. And so the hope is, that we can keep that going to sort of slow down the process of something going wrong, because there isn't really a spay surgery for chickens, and if the one that they do have is so dangerous that it's basically a last resort. Like, you only do it if there's no hope that continuing to let them lay eggs is going to allow them to live. And as you can see, Quincy likes to make sure that there is no funny business going on in the yard. He makes sure that nobody else is trying to procreate other than him. So if he sees anyone else doing it, he likes to come slam his chest into them to let them know that they need to stop letting nature take its course out in the yard, shall we say. So as you can see, he's kind of like letting Elvis know,